Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're taking a look at the AnCnoc 22-year-old 46% ABV. Dustin, 2013 bottling. Some dark whiskey right here, my friend. 2013 bottling, 22 years old, so it should be early 90s vintage. Natural color, unchill filtered. Everything we like other than the cask strength maturation, but 46% ABV is
good enough.
Minimum okayness.
Exactly.
All right, Dustin, you were able to pick this bottle up. What else can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so I think I actually read there's only about 5,700 bottles made of this.
Yeah, that's right, yep.
You were pouring heavy.
You were heavy for sure.
I'm like, geez.
5,700 bottles, you were saying.
I can't replace this, Mike. All right, so AnCnoc's become really popular here in the last couple of years because of their 24-year-old releases that have come out recently. Mm-hmm. They've been, getting a lot of hype. I've never seen a 24 available. However, did see this, picked it up for about 100, 120 bucks.
Good value for it.
I'm now seeing 380 bucks on actual websites. So apparently,
yeah, good value. I tell you what, if it is natural color as it states on the bottle, which we have to assume that it is dark for sherry and bourbon. Good, really good, rich dark color.
And it smells like chocolate, caramel burned sherry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fruity, dark, chocolatey sherry.
Yeah, I was about to say, very nice fruitiness. That's probably the malt. If you remember, Mike, we had a Cadenhead that was from the same distillery.
Yeah, 10-year-old.
Not pleasant, but I will say the one distinct note I did get off that I kind of put to heart was that this is a very fruity distillate.
Yes, it is. At least what we've experienced. Yeah. And that's there, drowned in sherry to some degree, but it's there.
Well, the one we had before was like the clearest stuff I've ever seen. That was not oak influenced. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like stewed fruits, almost, with this one.
Yeah, really heavy stewed fruit, right?
Mm-hmm. With dark sherry.
Yeah, a little bit of decent amount of oak tannins coming through. I'm guessing European oak is at least partially involved in this, or maybe they did a little bit of recharring or toasting.
Yeah, almost like purple maple syrup.
Oh, that's a good note.
Smells dark and rich and sticky.
This reminds me of a lot of sherried whiskeys I've had. I mean, this has similar sherry notes to, really Abelauer. I think the older Aaron's that weren't super heavy sherry, but they had similar notes in the nosing. This is very kind of modern standard sherry, but a good example of it. Not great, but a good example.
It's very dark, constructed sherry.
I'm starting to get a honey note here, too. I might be reaching a little bit with the honey note.
I think more sticky blue grapes.
Interesting.
With sugar. You could say maybe a light dusting of honey instead of sugar on blueberries.
It's funny that it's sweet, but it's not sweet. I don't know how else to say that. Like, I'm getting, we were getting that sugar, but also, this doesn't come away as a super dessert nose.
It almost reminds me of a Diamond-Tap style sherry, but there's something off about it. There's something, it's like that, but slightly hollow comparatively.
Yeah, and then the toasted bourbon notes are coming through here. And again, I just, for some reason, something in here is giving me a slight hint of toasted oak. A little bit of, if you could almost argue there's like a honeycomb, like the comb itself, maybe not the honey. Interesting. Just jump right into the palate.
Almost kind of sashaying here at the end into like a light, dry, bready note. Mm-hmm. But it's a nice, pleasant, strong sherry. It smells far more aggressive than 46%.
Yeah.
What are you picking up on the palate?
What you just said, nailed it. It's more aggressive sherry than you're used to. It has, again, I'm going back. I think there's I want to start reading here, but yeah, I don't see any notes. But I definitely get this spicy oak note with the pretty heavy sherry that makes me think of like a French oak, Spanish wood, something that's nice and spicy. There's a little bit of bourbon cask kind of sneaking in there in the finish, bringing some of that vanilla. You could almost say like a Christmas spice kind of thing going on here, Mike. But yeah, I'm thinking this is a Christmas kind of pour. Good quality, everyday sherry. This reminds me of like a Balvenie 17 double wood, An Abelauer 16-year with more proof. I mean, it's not too far from like a Tamdu or something like that. Just kind of classic, modern, kind of generic quality whiskey, if that makes sense.
The sherry note is too strong for it to be considered generic. The sherry note on this whiskey is far stronger than any of those whiskeys that you mentioned. Nice oaky cherry sherry, if that makes any sense. A little bit of cherry into that sherry note. It's bready, which is odd for a sherry note. It's almost like...
I think that's the bourbon cask coming in.
Yeah, it's almost like if you go to an Italian restaurant where they give you the bread that you dip into the olive oil. Mm-hmm. Almost a little bit of that, which is weird for a note. But then that sherry influence, it just is an overcoat over the whole experience. But the bourbon casks are doing a nice little bready, oily, light maybe vinegar, along with a couple of nice light fruits with the sherry overcoat with this one. But man, I tell you what, this is a fairly impressive whiskey, and I don't care if it's the nose or the palate, it comes off way higher than 46% ABV. If you told me this was 50% plus whiskey, I would completely believe you. If I had to guess, I would say at a minimum this was 48.
Yeah, I think that vinegary kind of note you're talking about, even some of the breadiness, I think it's actually the distillate. Again, based
Perhaps.
on...
I am unfamiliar with this distillery.
Again, I'm going back to that 10-year that we had.
Yeah, I'm just going strictly off of what
I'm remembering that vinegar note. I'm remembering that bready note. I'm remembering the fruitiness. So I think that's all coming through.
It was a little bit like some type of a green leaf. I initially want to say parsley, but that isn't right. It's almost like a basil. Basil, that's what it is.
This is actually starting to give me a little bit of a Macallan sherry kind of vibe. Modern Macallan, like the classic cut, or like one of those.
Oh, it's way better whiskey than that.
It's better whiskey, but I'm like the initial nose. Imagine if you took like
basil.
It reminds me if we blended edition 4 and 5 together. Sorry, go ahead.
Basil, light vinegar, light oil, bread, and those are all the subtle things that come around the sherry overcoat. That's just the core of the whiskey right here. You undersold this whiskey when you brought it here.
Little coriander.
And there's something...
There is a slight, like a chicken broth or something in there.
I want to say umami, some type of chicken cube, or almost
like those
tofu and soup.
I was thinking like chicken broth, like with the soup, yeah.
Chicken udon noodles. Chicken with udon noodles, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit of that for sure. Something like I mean, it's definitely in that realm, kind of. Yeah, it does. It brings in a little bit of umami with a little bit of sherry.
Basil too, and that's a rare. I don't know if I've ever said basil in a whiskey before.
I'm not quite getting that, but I get where you're going. Again, that's part of that soupiness, I think.
And still, you could just blankly call this a heavily sherried whiskey.
You could, absolutely.
And chalky cocoa.
Okay. I'm just getting red fruit, light chocolate, the umami notes for sure. Look at that chicken broth. Red fruits.
Holds up well some epic whiskeys we've had tonight.
A little bit of vanilla, I guess. It's funny, but I'm like struggling to come up with the word vanilla because I'm like, is that vanilla? I want to use something else, but it's vanilla.
Vanilla cocoa.
Well, cocoa's there, and then a little bit of toasted oak. And just a little bit of something else. Nice. Everything here's nice.
Well-aged, well-sherried whiskey. Mm-hmm. All right, buddy. I'm ready to move on to whiskey score on this one. And if you will allow
right
me,
ahead.
Can I go first?
Absolutely.
90.
Wow.
Well-aged, good, pungent, sticky sherry with a super interesting bready oak vinegar, oily note to it with a little bit of basil.
Oats are coming through now.
Super complex whiskey, handled water extremely well, natural color, unchill filtered, 46%, and it came off way higher than that. I am impressed with this whiskey. I didn't expect to go that high, but that's where I'm at.
Wow. I'm an 87. I like this whiskey, but it just, for me, all those strange, odd flavors floating around, the hints of vinegar, things like that, it just doesn't, to me, go together. It just sort of, it hangs out, it's chilling, it just doesn't come together for me in a perfect harmony. I love the sherry notes. I love the sherry cask they use. I think this is a really well put together whiskey. 87 is not a bad score, but to me, the sum of the parts, the whole of the whiskey's not as great as the sum of the parts. That's kind of where I'm coming from here.
This whiskey, you could just say, is an old sherried whiskey.
Yeah.
At a decent ABV.
Yeah.
And you could say, fine, 87.
Yeah.
This one, odd notes, yes. Things I don't say often.
Yeah.
Bread, vinegar, Italian restaurant.
It's very different.
Very different.
And, again.
And I love every one of these notes.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's why you're giving it a 90.
Correct. I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't really, there isn't harmony in this whiskey. There is two whiskeys going on here. Mm-hmm. Two different cask maturations fighting for supremacy. And again, I'll say it, as I've said it many times on this review, sherry overcoat. Mm-hmm. But the core, the inside of it, that bourbon cask maturation, funky, vinegar, bread, basil, a little bit of citrus, tannins.
It's an interesting whiskey for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we're way different on this whiskey. First time I had it, wasn't that impressed. This time, when I've had a chance to really focus on it, look at it, this whiskey's for me.
Hey, there you go. Well, I don't know that I can still get these, unfortunately, but good whiskey. If you guys have had one, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, Justin, what do we wish the folks?
Happy drinking.
We'll see you then.